Okay, guys, we're back on Your Biggest Critic podcast. Last week, it was just me on the podcast, but this week we have a really special guest. I'm so excited for her to be on the podcast. She is a clinical therapist and she is a special guest. She's an advocate for all things mental health, anxiety, depression, OCD. She listens and she's just an all-around a great person. And she has so much knowledge on this topic. So I really wanted her to bring in so we can talk about stigmas about medicine and therapy. So I want everybody to give a warm welcome to Christine Byers.
Thank you. Thank you very much. I appreciate that. And thank you for having me here. I appreciate it.
Oh my gosh, of course. I'm so excited. So, of course, because of the pandemic, we are Zooming, but I'm so excited to see Christine's face and so that we can start talking about the important topic of the stigmas around medicine and therapy. Because as many of you guys know, I'm in therapy, and so I'm a big advocate for it, but I know it doesn't work for everybody. So Christine is going to give us some knowledge and some tips on how maybe we can end the stigma around therapy and medicine and how therapy maybe has helped her, and I can give a little background on therapy about myself. But first, let's give Christine a warm welcome and let her introduce herself.
All right, so as you said, I'm Christine Martin Byers, and I am a therapist at Therapeutic Partners, and I've been with them for probably 4 years. Before that, and during that same time, I was a school counselor as well, an elementary school counselor. So I love it. I love being a therapist. And I'm excited to dive in with you some of the stigmas around therapy. I'm excited to talk about why people don't go to see a therapist. There are many reasons. There's so many variables. So I appreciate you giving me the platform and the opportunity to talk about that.
No, I'm so excited. I've been wanting to do this topic for so long. And so just with recent events that have happened, that I just thought it would be a perfect opportunity to have Christine on. All right.
Yeah, thank you.
Of course. All right. So let's get right into it, y'all. So do you think there are stigmas around therapy and medicine? And if so, what are they?
So let me kind of backtrack a little bit about my own personal journey. So for me, I started noticing really bad anxiety attacks in my 20s. And, at the time I didn't have insurance or access to any type of therapy. So I went and did some research on, what was going on with myself, and then that research, I recognized that, there are people I can go see for this. And I started researching therapy, and I started researching support groups, and just kind of putting myself out there and wanting to know what could I do to help myself feel better, because having anxiety and feeling scared all the time was not working for me.
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
sorry.
No, so
I just forgot your question.
No, you're fine. No, seriously, it's Friday, y'all. It really is. What stigmas do you think are around mental health?
Thank you for bringing me there. So the
and
stigma was there for me. So even in that research, and even in that, trying to find how to help myself feel better, when I finally decided, I need to go see somebody, that was a hard thing for me to accept. It made me feel even more scared. I remember when I started seeing my therapist, I was really thinking there was something wrong with me, that I was crazy. I was going to end up somewhere far away and never see my family again. So I think there's a lot of stigma because of the fear behind it, because of people not understanding mental health, people not understanding the importance of social emotional health. And because back then, because I'm 52, so that was in my 20s, a couple of years back, not too far. Back then, you just wasn't having the conversations like we're having today. But your podcast and many other podcasts are out there, all more geared towards mental health, especially now that we are going through the pandemic and there's an increase of people who are struggling and suffering. I think we're getting it even more out. We're seeing more about it and how healthy it is to get help, and apps and videos and yoga and different various ways that are being shown to us now, and how we can manage our stress and anxiety.
No, I
think that helps the stigma, is my point.
Yes, I believe that there is a stigma around it, because I think, like you said, like people think, oh, if you go to therapy or oh, you take medicine, that you're kind of on the crazy tracks of life. And that's not necessarily different. We have a hormonal and imbalance. And so we don't get enough endorphin. So that's why we're feeling the way we feel. And people don't realize that actually therapy, you don't have to have a mental illness to go to therapy.
That's
You
right.
can just need somebody to talk to who maybe isn't your mom and dad, because I know, like, I love my parents and they're my best friends. So is my sister, but sometimes it helps to get an outside perspective to come in and be like, okay, like, let's look at it this way. And so I think
Go ahead.
I think it's just important to know that just because you don't have a mental illness doesn't mean, oh, you can't go to therapy, or, oh, because you have one, you should go to therapy. Because again, therapy is not for everybody. Therapy has helped me tremendously. Like, I love my therapist. I see her once a month, twice a month, and it really does help me. But I know for a lot of people, or for some, I don't want to say a lot and put a bracket over them, it just doesn't. And but when it doesn't, you need to find other coping skills to cope with.
Absolutely. And I'm so glad you brought that up, because I am seeing more clients come in to just say, you know what, I recognize I have a lot of stress on my plate. I'm not handling it very well. I just wanted to talk to someone. I think it goes back to how I think the stigma around seeking therapy is, getting smaller, and people are recognizing that you're right. Okay, maybe it's not that I'm crazy. Again, that depends on where you're at, and depends on where you live, depends on your insurance, depends on your exposure. But I do think that people are recognizing now that, hey, sometimes it's just helpful to talk to someone because I'm just stressed out, because we're having those conversations. In addition to that, we are also, I know, like for the Wake County schools, they're really big in bringing in social emotional learning into the classroom, so that kids now are exposed to the idea of nurturing and being compassionate with our feelings and our stress level, and finding balance, even at a young age of elementary school. They too need to find balance.
Yeah, I love that. So do you think, and I since you said insurance, it just made me start to think, do you think that people don't get help because of their financial situation? And do you think that the economy, your economic status, also has something to do with the stigma around therapy and medicine? Because let's be honest, therapy and medicine is not cheap. It is not. And especially if you don't have a good insurance, it could be sky high. And if you have multiple kids on multiple different medicines, that could be astronomical. So do you think your economic status also plays into the stigma of medicine and therapy?
I think it's definitely an obstacle, right? And so that obstacle would then maybe leave around, tend to lend to some stigmas. But the obstacle is the financial burden of it. And that's an understandable thing. And I can relate to that, because like I said, in my 20s, I didn't have insurance. I didn't have the option to go see a therapist until I got a job where I had insurance, and I was able to make that happen. So in the meantime, I went to a support group. So yes, that can be an obstacle, but I just want people to know that that doesn't mean that you still can't find that help, because a lot of the books that we use in our office to help, they're there for anybody to use. So let's say, example, I'm working with you on your anxiety, and we take some things from a workbook on anxiety. That workbook you can use for yourself and work on yourself, which I think one of your questions is therapy for everybody? And so no, so I don't know, now's the time you want me to talk about that, or did you want to continue with the income and the
No, actually, that's perfect.
economic? Yeah.
Yeah, that was my next question. Do you think therapy is for everybody?
So I think that therapy, I personally say yes, therapy is for everybody, but that would not be a true statement, right? Because everybody's different. I have friends who have gone through tremendous amount of pain and suffering, who were able to manage it on their own through, say, a Stephen minister, or which is something that is offered, I think, through the Methodist Church, or maybe their friends and utilizing their friends. Even Oprah Winfrey, with all that she went through in her childhood, said she never sought therapy. Her friend Gail was her therapist. I don't recommend that, right? Because I know that, your friends are great, but there's a time that it's nice to have a neutral person that you can just talk to, and they're going to offer you advice, and they're going to hold that space to listen. So I think that, I know I just kind of tossed back and forth and sharing that answer because I want to say, yeah, therapy's for everybody, but doesn't necessarily mean you have to go seek therapy if that doesn't work for you. But it does mean that you need to do something to get yourself from being stuck, you know,
Mm.
and a lot of it is that stinking thinking that we have around many topics and including ourselves. So,
No, I love that. Yeah, I agree. Like, it's what you do in those moments that, okay, I'm stuck, but I'm not going to stay in this, like this, I don't want to say stuckness because that's definitely not a word, but like I'm
right.
going to stay in
We'll
this.
go with it.
Yeah, it's my podcast. I can do it
That's
whatever
right. That's right.
I want. The stuckness of it, it's what we do. Okay, so therapy doesn't work for you, talk to somebody else. If that doesn't work, maybe try medicine. If that doesn't work, try meditating, try yoga. Because if we just sit in our brokenness, and it is okay to say that you are broken, but the brokenness does not define you. So let's rise up and talk about these stigmas and rise up and let people know that we're struggling, because no one knows what goes on behind closed doors. And so just to be kind to everybody, which I love to say, like, go be the Gandhis and go be kind, is because I am a true believer of that. So yes, just because therapy doesn't work for you doesn't mean, all right, it's the end all be all. Let's just
Right.
stay where we are. No, that's not what
Right.
we're saying. We're saying keep rising, because if we all rise together, we can be the change that we want to see around the stigmas that we talk about on this podcast.
That's right. So the more you talk about it, the more that maybe somebody else will recognize, oh, I see my friend is struggling. Let me let her know that, hey, I'm here for you. I want to support you. Have you thought about seeing a therapist, you know? And I want people to know, and I don't know, you know, there are resources out there, but there are so many ways to get help that's not necessarily in the therapeutic setting. And I do hope that one of the takeaways people have is that if they do feel a stigma around it, or if they feel uncomfortable around it, they can still start with themselves and doing some research.
Yeah. I feel like it all starts with being informed in research.
That's exactly right.
But
Being
it's
informed.
where you get your research, because just because you get it from Wikipedia or TikTok or Instagram doesn't mean it's always right, y'all. So make sure your sources are actually like beneficial, and maybe try .org. .org is always good. .org is where we start.
Yeah, well, I know that there are many reputable websites out there, one being the American Psychiatry, oh my gosh, APA, American Psychiatry Association.
Oh,
And
I've heard of that. I know what you're talking
I just went
about.
completely blank.
No, I did too, but I know what you're talking about.
Yeah, and so that's a really good resource. So .org, sure, but look for big names, even WebMD, although I tell my clients don't go near WebMD. But if you are trying to look for a resource in terms of like, where can I go? They do have a tab for that. Like, where can I go to find help for anxiety? Yeah, so where can I go to help, where's the support group for depression? Where's the support group? And then some people are like, support groups are not for me. That's okay, right? Then if it's not for you, that's where I don't want you to give up. That's why I want you to go to the store, go to Amazon, figure out some things that does work for you. Maybe trying a online meditation class that are free on YouTube, right?
Yeah.
Maybe Insight Timer is, I think, free, and it's a great app for meditation and mindfulness activities.
Yeah. No, I love that. I love talking about this kind of stuff because it starts with one conversation. It starts with that one research click. It starts with seeing that one ad maybe on your phone, because I feel like our phones are always listening to us. Like, I'll watch us after the Zoom call. Like, I'll be scrolling on Instagram or TikTok and be like, mindfulness comes up because we're talking about it. But it really does take that one click, that one phone call, that one research click, and to like really be the difference that we need to see. Because I think, yes, some stigmas are good, but we have a lot of bad stigmas circulating our internet right now and our world right now about a lot of different things. But I think right now we need to come together and really try to end the stigma of mental health. So going off of that, do you think, or how do you think we can eliminate the stigma around therapy and medicine?
By what you're doing right here, having these conversations. the more you talk about it, the more people are open, the more people are vulnerable. I think that's why, I love Brene Brown when she talks about vulnerability, because, we all want to put on the front, right? We all have our faces. We have our faces at home, our faces at work, our faces at, wherever outside, going shopping, whatever, right? But in the end, that sometimes, it's okay to have the courage to say, me too. I felt that too.
Mm-hmm.
And there are times I'll share with my clients who are really struggling with anxiety. Like, I'll say to them, I understand what that feels like. And sometimes you can just see, like, really, you do, right? And I just want them to go, hey, look at me, I'm not crazy, right? As a matter of fact, I'm here to share with you some tools that could help you with that. So I think, it's really important to be vulnerable, which takes courage, and say, you know what, me too. I felt that before as well. Or it's okay.
Yes, I know. I completely agree. But I also want people to know and realize that just because you retweet or you repost the hashtag end mental health stigma, or hashtag take down the stigma, or hashtag end the stigma, doesn't mean you're actually doing those things. It's having these hard conversations. It's going out into the public and really like being uncomfortable because if we live in the comfortable, then the uncomfortable will never appear. And then we're not really living our lives. We need to be in the uncomfortable and say, hey, if you're struggling, come to me. I can help you. I can find resources to you. But like that one person isn't going to be the end all be all. Like therapy isn't the end all be all. It's again, what we do. And I just want to make that clear because yes, it was World Mental Health Day, and I love all things mental health. I have a sweatshirt, I have t-shirts, I love it. But just because we all around the world retweeted hashtag end mental or end the stigma around mental health doesn't mean we actually did it, you guys. We still have a lot of work to do, but we are seeing change day by day, and more people coming out and being like, hey, I struggle too. And I think it's really comforting to know that other people are struggling too. Not that they're struggling, but because it makes people more human. It makes people think, okay, I'm like them. Like the Simone Biles thing. Like Demi Lovato came out, with all her stuff. Britney Spears, the more people who come out who are higher in the hierarchy, but also who are maybe lower on the hierarchy, the more we can come together and see the middle and be like, okay, this is what we need to do.
Right. And, that takes a lot of personal work too for the individual. Right. Yeah. So you're right. But I do think it's great that we're saying hashtag, right, in mental health. Yeah. Because if nothing else, it's coming across our brain. It's feeding our brain. It's showing us, oh, that's right. Oh, okay. So we get off track. We see that pop up again. We're like, oh, that's right. I need to get back on this bandwagon. That's right. I want to make sure I'm being supportive and kind. And so I think, it's important to at least still have the understanding that the work starts individually. If we want to learn how to not judge others, we got to first learn how to not judge ourselves and be okay with our own feelings and be okay with our own insecurities and be okay with our own fears. And that's why it's vulnerability, right? It's putting down that guard and saying, yeah, man, I feel really scared too, and that's hard for people to do. We got to give them grace for that.
Yeah.
I do want to also, in addition, touch on the medicine. So medicine is definitely an individual choice. I would never, as a therapist, say, I think you need to get on meds. What I will do is say, have you spoken to your doctor about what you're feeling? If you're, really struggling with getting out of bed, if you're struggling with showing up for work or doing your best job, or feeling panicky and scared every day and just feeling like you just can't get it together, and you've tried all of these things, go see your doctor. Start there, right? Because everybody hopefully has access to some form of general practitioner, and then take it from there, because at least you're making the first steps to recognize and at least say to someone in private, I'm not feeling right. And then they can help you make the best choices, give you ideas, educate you on the medicines that are out there. That's not when you want to go to WebMD, is when you want to educate yourself on medicine, just if you're looking for support, what supports are out there. But there are a lot of websites out there, but that's not one I recommend you go searching out medicine, because it always has to state the worst case scenario, right?
And that's what anxiety wants us to feel and wants us, our brains, to know
Right.
is the worst case scenario, but we can't live life like that. And I used to live life like that. And it's lonely and it's a scary place. But because of therapy and because of medicine, I've come out on the other side, and it there is a light at the end of the tunnel. There always is a light at the end of the tunnel. And I want people to know that. And I want people to be educated the right way about mental health and therapy and the stigmas and medicine and all the things. And so I think the more we talk about it, like you said, the more the hashtag goes around, yes, that it's beneficial, but we really need to start talking about it, and on our campuses too.
Yes, I agree. And I do think, college campuses are getting smarter about having access to mental health. Definitely, much more than when I was going to state. I know that they have so much more now to offer. They offer meditation classes, they offer mindfulness classes that are there with their center that they have, their clinical center. So I do think that college campuses are becoming more aware of the importance of this as well as our elementary, middle, and high school. And I think that's a good place to start too, right? Because
Yeah.
that's where you have most access to those kids and to
Yeah.
those people in the younger audience who are struggling and have no choice, who don't have a say, that don't say, I'm feeling really bad. Where do I go? They're afraid to talk about it with their parents. They're afraid to talk about it with their friends. I think there's more stigma probably around that age group than there is for our older adults, but that's just my opinion. There's no data around that.
Oh, no. I was about to say, like, there is a lot of mental health becoming younger and younger and younger, especially with the pandemic and especially with everything that's going on. You just see more and more anxious kids, and it's sad. So I'm excited that we're having this conversation today. My next question is, and I think it's my last question,
Sure.
but do you think in 20 years we will see the stigma around therapy and medicine end? Like, are we trending in that direction, or do you see us trending backwards, or where do you, I know that's like 5 questions in one, I'm sorry, but like, where do you
That's
see us
okay.
standing in 20 years about mental health and stigmas around it?
I think that we are going to progress in a positive way, but that's just who I am, right? I see us already progressing. I already see the progression from just 20 years ago when I was really struggling, right?
Mhm.
So I do think there is more out there today, and I think it's just going to increase itself. And I think that the more, like you said, that we are putting it out there, the more that we're aware of it, the more that we're practicing it. I know companies are incorporating now clinical therapy within the company itself and offering mindfulness classes and meditation classes. I hear a lot of my clients talk about that. So yes, I do think we're moving in a great direction. In 20 years, would it be completely ended? I can't say that, but I certainly hope we'll be in a better place than we are today.
Yeah, I like that. Yes. I'm excited to see where we're going. I do agree that we're trending in the right direction. So I hope to see a real change, and I hope one day my kids can feel like they can advocate for themselves better than you and I felt like we could. So
Yes. Yeah, I am definitely sure that you probably had more access than I did, say, when I was in kindergarten and
yeah,
feeling that anxiety and that fear and having no name or understanding about it.
yeah,
Right. But say, nowadays, if a kindergartner is feeling that, hopefully they have a school counselor that's coming into the classroom and teaching some lessons, as well as teachers are now teaching social emotional health within their lessons, within their guidance lessons. I mean, not their guidance, but their um, educational structural, whether it's the ELA or even in math, somehow, some way they're now trying to start incorporating social emotional learning.
yeah. No, I love it. I like the trend that we're going in. Well, I really appreciate you being here today and coming on the
Thank
podcast.
you so much for having me.
Of course, anytime. Again, you guys are never alone. You can always reach out to one of us. You can reach out to a friend, a family member. Remember that there is a light at the end of the tunnel, and to really go be the Gandhis you want to see in the world and create the change you want to see, because it starts with us. I hope you guys have a great weekend and an even better week, and stay tuned for the next episode of You're Your Biggest Critic. Thank you so much, Christine, for coming on again today. And I
Thank
hope
you so
everybody
much.
has a great weekend. Bye.